Hey. So I don't know which video is going up first. I don't know if it's my shea moisture rant going up first or if it's this video. Whichever, they're both going to be going up. So I needed to do a little video. Yeah, I know everybody and their mama always does these YouTube videos of, oh, I've been gone, where have I been, where have you know what you've been doing, and I'm back videos. And I know I'm one of those people because I did one before when I said I was going to be back and be coming out and doing videos back to back, and that shit did not happen. Okay, and it did not happen because life happened. So if any of you guys follow me on social media, oh gosh, I hope I do not burst into tears as I talk about this. Okay, if any of you guys follow me on social media, you know that I recently lost my dad in January. So in August, he got really sick and came back, and you know, he got really sick and we found out that he was diagnosed with stage 4 liver cancer. I was like, what? So my life was pretty much turned upside down from August until now, actually. I'm still trying to deal with all of that, but that's kind of why I've been gone for so long. I mean, in the beginning of my being away from YouTube, it was because having 2 kids and working full time and just that sucked a lot, and it seems like I can never find time to record and do videos, so that was a big factor. But then the biggest factor happened when we found out about my dad's diagnoses, and it really hit really hard. You know, my dad is pretty much the reason why I'm even in America. You know, like, you know, he brought us over here, and he was like the person that if you needed anything and he only had one thing left, and it was either to give it to that person or to save himself, he would give it to that person. And I know a lot of people probably say that about their parents or dads, but my father literally helped so many people that when we had his funeral and everyone found out that he was sick and they came and would say how he helped them and did this, I would ask myself, like, when did you find the time? Like, where? So from August until January 26th, when he passed, we pretty much I dealt with that. In and out of the hospitals. There were days where we thought he was going to get better, and then around Christmas, like around Christmas time, like the week, so Cassie's birthday was the 16th. So the 17th he ended up in the ER, and he was admitted, and he was taking off all his chemo medication because he was taking tablets. He didn't have to go into a center and do IV chemo. He was, you know, blessed enough to be at home and do his chemotherapy at home. But he got really bad in like that week of the 17th, and he ended up in the ER, and he was admitted, and his oncologist was just like, you know, it just seems like your meds are doing worse, are making you worse than better. So they took him off all of his chemo meds. And so he was admitted, and we had planned on having like this big Christmas dinner at our house where all of our family from out of town would come. And at the time, it was expected for him to still be in the hospital. And of course, my dad doesn't listen to anyone because that's just what he does. He told the hospital he was leaving. He said, I have family coming in from out of town, and I'm not spending Christmas in the hospital. So I don't know what y'all's options are, but I'm not going to stay here for Christmas. His oncologist, you know, was like, I don't blame you. So, when we found out about his diagnosis in August, they had told us like he had about 6 months to live, and we were just really praying. We didn't initially tell him because sometimes you feel like when you tell someone that, they kind of automatically give up and don't want to fight anymore. And I think maybe not telling him right then allowed him to fight a little bit more, you know. He didn't give up as easily. So they ended up putting him on hospice, and that's how he was able to leave the hospital to be home for Christmas. So he was able to be home for Christmas. We had a great family dinner. And you know, he was able to make it through the new year, because that was one thing he didn't know if he could do, was make it to the new year. But he was able to make it to new year. I was able to, you know, bring in the new year with him and his grandkids. And it was amazing, because it wasn't something we even expected to have been able to happen for us. So he had like a, like, towards the end, he had like a stomach thing where it was really kind of made his stomach bloated. He couldn't eat, he couldn't drink, he had a lot of like swollen feet and stuff. And we ended up having to schedule like a procedure to be done for him to relieve the excess fluid. So he went in on that Tuesday in January for that procedure, you know, and I was here to, you know, have him go with the doctor and everyone. And then everything went fine, but on their way back, everything kind of went downhill. His vitals started to crash, and he really wasn't doing good. So he ended up in the ER by the hospice hospital, like the hospice center, because they're the ones that did the procedure. And so the hospice called me to see if I wanted them to go to the ER and see if they could get him transferred across the street to the hospice center, since they were, you know, the one, so they can be the one to take care of him. So I said that's fine, because it'll be more comfortable. So I went up to the hospital that Tuesday to see him at the hospice center, and you know, he was still cognizant, and he was talking, and you know, I was just talking to him, and so that went okay. And then so that Wednesday I came home. I didn't go up to see him that Wednesday. I'd got a lot of stuff done for work. And Thursday, my aunt called me and told me that he really wasn't doing good. So my other aunt came and picked me up to go to see him, this is Thursday the 26th. So we go, and it was like a totally different change. I really wouldn't wish that sight on anyone, like that type of, the way that he looked. I wouldn't wish that on anyone. It was like he was just struggling to breathe, and his eyes were open but really not open. They are telling us, you know, he can't talk to you, but he can hear you, so just make sure you say stuff and talk to him. And you know, that's what I was doing. And oh man, it was hard. I don't know if any of y'all have ever experienced or seen someone go through like a transition of life and death, and it was so hard to see him like that, to see the person that you just saw as like a superhero, and to just see them in a way that you just never thought would be possible. So for a couple of hours we dealt with that. It was, I got there like at 11, and my mom's pastor came, and you know, he prayed for him, and we all prayed. And then ironically, the hospice center has like volunteers that come and have like an orchestra or whatever. So they started on one end, and I thought that was it, but then they ended up coming to the end where my dad's room was, and literally stopped like right by his room. And they started to play like this live music orchestra, and it was so amazing and just perfect, just because he loved like live bands and live music. So it was just like everything was just coming full circle. So when I talked to the nurse, I was like, what are we looking at? Like, what's the time frame? She was like, well, probably by the end of the night. And at that point, you could see the transition taking place, like from the chest down, everything was cold. His hands were cold. They weren't moving. His feet were swollen. And he just was struggling. It was just like watching him trying to gasp for air. It's kind of like when you have sleep apnea and you breathe and then you kind of stop and then you start up again. So it was like around 10 something, everyone had left the room. It was just my uncle and I in the room. We were just talking because there was another family diagonal in the hall from us, and I didn't even realize he passed. So it was like we were talking and talking, and then I heard him take like this last like big breath. And then I thought, and I mentioned to my uncle, I was like, oh, hey, I was like, Daddy actually is starting to breathe normal. Like, he breathed normal. Like, when you breathe with your mouth open and closed it. So he took a deep breath and then closed his mouth. And then I was like, yeah, this is the first time all day that he's taking a normal breath. And then he opened his mouth again. So I just assumed he was going back to his, the apnea type of breathing. And then I waited a second and I told my uncle, I said, I don't think he's breathing anymore. So yeah, that was his last breath. It it was bittersweet because you watch someone for so many months and so many hours that they struggle and struggle and struggle. So it's like when they finally are no longer in pain, you're happy, but then you have the reality sinks in that they're gone, you know? It was like full circle because I took him to the um, GI doctor when they were telling him that most likely it was cancer and he needed to get a liver biopsy done because of all the masses that the x-ray showed. And I was in the room when he took his last breath. So guess it was a circle of completion. It's been hard. I don't think I've really processed it or grieved as you're supposed to, because right after that it was funeral planning mode. Because we did a service here for him, and then his wish was to be buried back home in Sierra Leone. So we did a service here in February, and then his body was flown back to Sierra Leone that following week, and then they had their celebration and buried him there on the 19th of February. It's just so hard to believe that, when you come in this country, you are a passenger, you're sitting in the airplane in a chair, you're a passenger, but then when you die and you want to go back home, your cargo, right? You're in the back of the airplane with all of the luggages and other nonsense that people have back there, and you have to remember that your father had to deal or be put in that position. But the funeral here was beautiful. It was a great turnout. I mean, he touched so many people. Like, there are people that are still in disbelief of his passing because of how good of a person he was and how helpful and how family was so important to him. And it's just like, I'm just glad that my kids got to meet their grandfather. I'm glad that they got to build a relationship with them. And it's so amazing because, like, after he passed, so my son had this thing where he would come home from school, like him and Jackson and Cass will come home from school, they walk up the step, and the first thing he'll say is, "Hey, Pop Pop," you know. So that week that he passed away, that Tuesday when he was in the hospital, he did that. And, you know, I had to tell him, I was like, you know, Jackson, Grandpa's not here. He's in the hospital, you know. And then the Wednesday he did it again. Thursday I wasn't here. I was at home, so I don't know if he did it because I was in the hospital. But Friday, he didn't do it. He just stopped doing it. It's like as if he just knew. I mean, when I said every day from August, he would have that routine, and then just suddenly Friday, he just stopped doing it. And then Cassidy, you know, she's a little bit older than Jackson, so and they go to like a Christian based school, and I had to talk to her about it. You know, I was like, you know, because she kept on asking about him, you know, and then initially I was like, he's in the hospital, you know, and then after he passed, so that Friday I had to talk to her about it. I was like, you know, Cassidy, you know, Grandpa is not coming back anymore. She's like, you know, what do you mean? I was like, you know, he passed away. I was like, you know, do you know what that means? Do you know what that means when you say someone's passed away? She's like, yes. I was like, well, what does that mean then? She's like, he's in heaven with Jesus and God. I was like, oh, Lord, thank you. Because I didn't know how I was going to break this down to this 4-year-old. But it's just so amazing because there are days where, like a couple of days after his passing, she came up to me and asked me, she's like, Mommy, why is Grandpa following me everywhere? I was like, what do you mean? She's like, everywhere I go, he's right there. I was like, well, he's gonna be following you. You know, he's got to protect you guys. He's got to make sure you're okay. So that's why you probably will see him. But that just made my heart melt because even though I can't feel his presence, at least I know that my kids are able to know and feel his presence, and you know, he's around to just look after us because he promised when, you know, in his last days that he would do whatever he could to make sure we were protected and taken care of. So and him and Jackson were really close. So the week that his body was flown back, Jackson was just so different. He would just sit on the table at the table and just lay his head down, and he would just look like and stare off, and I'd be like, what's wrong, you know, are you okay? He's like, yeah. And I was like, you know, do you miss Pop Pop? He's like, yeah. So that Sunday when he got buried back in Sierra Leone, we went to church, and I got the message that, you know, they finally finished, the burial was done. We got home from church, and it was like he was right back to his normal self, happy, going off, you know, jumping, active. It was as if he just needed to make sure his grandfather was, you know, finally resting, you know. So yeah, that's what I've been dealing with and still dealing with. You know, they say there are 5 stages of grief, but shit, at this time, I feel like I've gone in and out of all them damn things. Like, I'm just in and out, like hopscotch. It's a hard process, you know. The wake was hard because it made it a reality. The funeral was hard because it definitely made it even more of a reality. Seeing his coffin in the grave just made it even, I don't know how people process that. I mean, I know people lose people every day, but I am a big daddy's girl, and I just don't, I try to kind of, I want to get to the point where when I think of him and I talk about him, I don't cry, I smile. I ain't got there yet. That's not a part that I have gotten to yet. I'm hoping that I do, but right now, I haven't yet. I really haven't yet. I hope one day that I can get there, but it's easier said than done. If any of you guys have some ideas on dealing with grief, loss, a parent loss, leave a comment down below, because my sister needs some help. But I'm hoping that I can get back into my routine of doing my videos and posting, and maybe that can kind of help me get back into the routine of things. But yeah, I just wanted to update y'all. Sorry for the breakdown. I just wanted to update y'all on what's been going on and why a sister done disappeared. I didn't leave. I didn't abandon YouTube. I just needed a break because of life. I wished I could have crawled in a hole somewhere and just not live any part of this process that I've endured the past few months. But I gotta fake it till I make it, because I got 2 kids that look at me and I have to be like, mommy's okay. And really, it's like, so yeah. Well, pray for my sanity. But you know, hopefully I can get back into this routine, and I've got, you know, a lot of things and videos that I want to do. I just gotta get back into the mojo and get it in and get them out. I have to update you guys on my hair. I need it to be redone. Look at it. But I have to do a 2-year update and a year update on Cassidy's, but I'll get to all of that. I hope to be able to do some more vlogs. But yeah, so keep me lifted in prayers or something. But yeah, so I'll see you guys in the next video. Thank you for watching. Bye.